There's Darwin. Darwin's always willing to help me. Um, I want to thank Markings Gallery. They are hosting the Zoom format. And here with me is Nan, the owner of the gallery, and her daughter, Layla, who's here to visit for the new year. So welcome, thank you for coming so much. For those of you who don't know about Markings Gallery, that's where I sell my tapestries, and I also sell some art to wear that I make. And it's a phenomenal gallery in Bath, Maine, here in Bath. And we sell things on our website. So you can go to markingsgallery.com and see my work, but we have a whole lot of other artists on the gallery, in the gallery on that website. So you can definitely go there and see that. Oops. Yeah, okay. So this tapestry, which is called NeverMore, started out with a different title. I didn't have a title at first. I was inspired to weave horses because I'm fascinated by horses, and they're everywhere. The top center photo is Piccadilly Square, and there's an amazing sculpture there of four horses coming at you. Really powerful piece, and it was quite inspiring, but I just went everywhere when I was in England 2 years ago and photographed horses every place. And I did eventually I had woven previously this tapestry called Freo Elenlic, which is it is Anglo-Saxon for brave and valiant woman. And I even went so far as to have it digitally printed, a detail of the horse on a silk georgette scarf that I sell, and people like them. I like horses. I don't own any, but I like them. This is the first iteration of this tapestry, and it's somebody else's artwork, so I wasn't going to weave it, but it was a starting point. And then I just started collecting images from the internet, all kinds of things. I was inspired by by COVID, of course, by the politics in the US, and by the medieval tapestries. So I just started honing in on images, and Trump, of course, and his craziness. The unicorn tapestry and the beauty of the unicorn, and I'll talk more about unicorns later, and the other images here. Also the apocalypse tapestry. I had done a corset. I designed and wove a corset that was inspired by the apocalypse tapestry, and it's called the Little Devil corset, and it has these little devils, and you can't really tell if they're getting ready to tighten that corset or loosen it, and that was inspired by the Me Too movement. But I'm also attracted to the colors in the tapestries. Okay. And so again, the apocalypse tapestry. This is a painting that was done by Victor Vasnetsov in 1887, and it's the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. And the horsemen are actually really, in reading it, really part of the horse. They're not separate, but they each represent something different. Death by the pale horse, the black horse is war, the red horse is famine, and the white horse, as you can see, is conquest. So I started working with those images and copying them and cut them out and tape them and play with them, print them, shape them, and make them mine, experimenting in different ways. And so here's the red horse, and I combined the butt of a horse with the snake neck and head of the creature on the left. and I wanted to include my initials, BB, and I just searched around for all kinds of illuminated letters, and this is the one that I came up with, and you can see on the right how it was woven. I decided to do Uncle Sam going to hell in a handbasket. And you can see the progress of the image, how I sourced flames, Uncle Sam, and a basket and put them together. And then in order to weave the basket, I had to trace the lines on Mylar and put it over fat white board to really read it behind the warp. For those of you who don't know, the tapestry gets woven on warps that are attached to the loom, but behind it, the way I work, is the design or the cartoon. So I was also interested in some of the frames in the Book of Hours of Catherine of Cleves. And so this one, I liked this one a lot, and I started playing around with it, cutting things out and putting things in. And these are different iterations. And so, as I said, the original title was different. It was The Apocalypse. And it still wasn't working. And I know it looks really messy, but I can see through that mess and see that it wasn't quite right. So I am interested in ravens. I have a sculpture of a raven in my yard even. So I just started looking at ravens, thinking about Edgar Allan's Poe, Nevermore. And at one point I thought, that one on the bottom right corner, I thought maybe I could hang the whole tapestry by a raven in flight, but that didn't work. And something interesting, I cannot remember who mentioned this to me, but I thank them. And if you're here, thank you. If you know anything about the plague and medieval doctors, this guy, I'm just going to read it for you. The first mention of the famous plague doctor costume is found in a mid-17th century work written by Charles Delorme, a royal physician in the service of King Louis XIII of France. Delorme wrote that during a 1619 plague outbreak in Paris, he developed an outfit made entirely of Moroccan goat leather, including boots, breeches, a long coat, hat, and gloves. The main feature of the outfit was a tight-fitting mask, complete with crystal eyepieces. This extended into a long beak, which was about half a foot long and filled with perfume or aromatic herbs. The beak was the most iconic feature of the outfit and was thought to be essential for the doctor to prevent the inhalation of pestilential miasma, or disease-ridden air coming directly from the patient. Does that sound familiar? So this was after the fact, and one thing I find very interesting in my designing and creating pieces is I have an idea, and then as I'm going along, I learn things that if I'd known ahead of time, they still would have been included. Things like this that just are so perfect, so perfect. So here's where the design started getting locked in. The one on the left was close, but not quite there. Then I inserted the raven. And interestingly, that one in the middle, I submitted the design to an online exhibit, and it wasn't accepted for the exhibit, but I got an award. The exhibit was Art in the Time of Coronavirus and Social Distancing. It was a certificate of excellence from the Circle Foundation for the Arts. I can't think of anything stranger in terms of awards to not get in an exhibit, but still get an award. So you never know where things are going to come from. The one on the right is basically the finished cartoon. So here it is. And you can, so that progression, you can see how it came about. So now that I had the cartoon, I knew that I wanted to dye the yarns for it, or most of the yarns for it. And I do have a nice little dye studio. And so these are indigo, dark, medium, and light. and lighter. And my indigo dye teacher is here with us, Kathy. Thank you for helping me through this process. I also dyed the reds. So I did a bunch of tests and finally came up with a color red that I was happy with. And it's cochineal with a tin mordant and a lac afterbath. And you can see I was trying to match the red, of course it's ink, but the red in a book I have about the Apocalypse tapestry. Here is the beginnings, the core of my colorway. And so you've got the indigo on the left, black, gray, 2 different shades of red. And then the shades on the left are eucalyptus, and they look closer in shades than they really are. And then this is my beginnings. And I added the colors for the unicorn and the fire, the flames, with yarns that I had in my cabinet. Then I started warping the loom. So before I could warp the loom, I had to decide on the size. And the way that I do that is I have a projector. I reproduce the design very tiny so that it will fit in the projector. And at night, I project it on a wall and I move the projector back and forth until it's the size I want. And then I measure one dimension, usually the width, and then I can blow the cartoon up to that width and the size, the height is a given. And I have an app called Split Print. And I print it in that app and it prints any size I want over as many 8.5 by 11 sheets as it takes to get to that size. And then I cut the white off and tape them together. So that's how I create my cartoon. Then I know how big it's going to be, so I know how large the loom needs to be. And then I have to decide on the sets, or the ends per inch, how many warp ends in an inch. And for this tapestry, it's 10 ends per inch. And the way I decide is I look at the tapestry and see what the detail requires, how many ends I need to create the detail that I want to get. And then I make the leashes, which is what I use to change the shed so that I can weave. And start get the warps all in place and do the knotting. I'm sorry, I knot every warp gets a double half hitch, knotted across to hold the weft in together. Once it comes off the loom, then I weave the hem and create a hinge with 2 rows of sumac separated by 2 passes of just plain weave. A bit of work, just all that, just to start weaving. So I started the design in June 2020, and I began the weaving November 23rd or 26th or something like that, 2020. And I just finished it. So the first thing I wove was my initial, and then I got into doing the unicorn. You can see his legs. Uncle Sam came next, and here's a little example of I just testing colors to see what was going to work for the basket, what colors I wanted to use, and then I would pull that out and once I've decided, and start weaving. Then when I came to the bird, I have to say that the raven feathers, it was the hardest thing I've had to do in weaving. I wove and unwove multiple times. I finally got smart and took the cartoon down. So what you're seeing hanging there is a previous version of the cartoon that I blew up, and it was hanging on the back of the loom. And the cartoon that you see, I just laid it down on the table behind it and drew in the feathers, and once I figured out what I was going to do. And the reason you see that little hole, that square opening, is because I took that page, and you can see all the 8.5 by 11 or A4s for you folks in Europe and the UK, and use that as my guide because it was very hard to see what I was doing through the warp at times. So this is finally the detail shots of that raven that gave me so much trouble. I can't begin to tell you how frustrating it was. And I finally couched. These lines are what I call rat tail. It's like a satin cord couched to the surface as I wove. So to delineate the spine in the feather. And here's the red horse coming up with the devil head, and you can see a good example of the background. And there's the ribbon from the Catherine of Cleves manuscript, illuminated manuscript. There's the black horse, and a lot of gradations in that. And if you look down at his feet, the bottom right corner of the image, the ribbon with the 3 horizontal lines, hold that in your mind, because I started weaving it the wrong color. So the top left corner, I'm unweaving, even though it's woven above, I'm unpicking that weaving because I kept going with the background color. Then this picture, you can see I'm starting to needle weave in the correct color. And here's more needle weaving and sewing a slit at the same time. And getting just keep on going, and this is the finished. So I think this is maybe the 3rd time in my weaving career that I've done that, but it had to be done. So this is what it looks like when I'm weaving. So when I get up to the higher I get, the higher my chair has to be. So I have a drafting table chair, a draftsman's chair that screws up, and I eventually had to put it on a little platform I have. Then I had to go out and buy a scaffold because I couldn't reach any longer. And Halloween, in my Halloween costume, because it wasn't quite time to leave, so I thought, oh, I'll get some weaving in. And you can see the little lights in the bustle there, and Darwin, of course, helping me. And this is another view working on the scaffold and what it looked like. And another view. And just a little detail for those of you who are weavers, tapestry weavers, this is how I got my beautifully straight, even lines between 2 colors. I used it in this is just, the black is just a sample, but this is what I did between my border and my ground. So you, in one shed, you put both colors laying on top of each other, and it looks like what you see on the left. If you do it a different way, weavers, you know what I'm talking about, you get this sort of jagged line on the right. So just a little nod to the tapestry weavers. The view from my eyrie as I looked down at the tapestry, and this is me. My studio is over the garage, so I can roll out of bed and just go in and work. And I often do that before I get dressed, have breakfast, anything. So through part of this, I had tendonitis in my elbow. So there were certain things, repetitive motions I couldn't do for very long, like cutting all the ends on the back of the tapestry. So I'd work for a little while and then I'd have to stop. But that was the process at the end. And that is it. So I am going to stop sharing, and you all can unmute. And if anybody has any questions, or maybe I should, Jenny, unmute yourself.
Yes.
What did you decide to do? Did I decide to take questions first or unveil first? I can't remember.
Unveil first.
Unveil. Okay, we're going to unveil.
I'm so excited. I can't take it.
Wow, you've seen this whole process.
Yes. Wow.
Oh my God, that is.
It's just unbelievable. Oh, it's stunning.
I can only see
I
it in
can't
a
see
little
it.
square.
Is there a
Um,
light, folks?
Barbara, tell people to pin it.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. You'll see
Wow.
large, so you won't see it.
how do you pin it?
Okay, so you go to the
Oh, got it.
corner of your block, and there's a little 3 dots. See mine? And when I click on it, it says pin video. Well, mine will say that, but yours will say something. It'll say pin. And so what you'll see is that image. So you go to mine. You have not yours, but my little square.
If you click on it, it's on the bottom right.
Depends on whether you're on a computer, an iPad, a phone. But somewhere in my square, in a corner, you'll see a little 3 dots, 3 horizontal dots.
Is it in the chat? Is it in the chat?
No, it's not in the chat.
No.
Go to my square where I am, right here. Go to
Okay.
okay. So you may not be, there are so many people here. It's going to be probably on the first page. So if you, there's 3 pages of people. There's 51 people here. So
And you have to be in gallery view. You have to
Yes.
be in gallery view.
well, let's see.
You can also see it if you just go to speaker view and just
And
watch
So
the speaker.
go to speaker view, the person speaking is going to be, so if somewhere in a corner of your screen, it's going to either say speaker view or gallery view. If it says speaker view, you're in gallery view. So if you see 25 squares with names and pictures, find my square. So if you're not on the page that I'm on, there are going to be arrows on the left and right or up top and bottom. Change pages till you find my square.
Okay.
And then in my square, on the top, on one of the corners, you're going to see, it's going to say, you're going to see dots or something. Click on it. And when you click on it, you're going to have options. You want to click pin.
See that either.
So
Me information. That's not good.
there
can
it
I say that those feathers are amazing?
Thank
The
you.
feathers came out. I'm just like, wow. They just, and the balance of the lights and darks, and oh my gosh, this is,
Oh my gosh.
this is such a treat. Thank you.
He's gonna put it on mute
That help a little bit with light.
speaker.
So
It's amazing. It just everything, doesn't it?
have any questions?
Barbara, I have some questions.
Sure.
What's the significance to the design of the blue design behind?
So this pattern,
Yeah.
In the Book of Hours.
that comes from one of the Apocalypse tapestries.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's also from the Book of
Panels
the
of
very-
the Apocalypse tapestry. So there's a lot of symbology here. Uncle Sam going to hell in a handbasket is pretty obvious. The 4 horses of the apocalypse. I think you can get that one. This image right here, this symbol. This is a symbol of chaos, and embedded in it is a hammer and sickle. So I think you can take it from there. This is pretty self-evident. It's a foot stepping on the scales of justice.
Oh.
So it's not real obvious.
Can't see that.
Yeah. The ribbon comes from the Book of Hours of Catherine of Cleves, if you recall. And it kind of speaks to DNA, to what's ingrained in us. On the unicorn, there's a symbol, there's a necklace that he's wearing, and that's a symbol of unity. The raven and Nevermore. That's where the title, part of why the title is. And there's a lot of symbology around ravens. I won't go too deeply into that. The unicorn is kind of like hope to me. So, but
Actually, a unicorn is about resurrection. And the fact
Well,
that he couldn't leave
you're
his body.
person, it would be resurrection. I'm not. So, I say hope. But those are, there's a lot more to it than that. But if I don't want to give you too much, because I want you to interpret it for yourself and see what you see.
It was pretty grim without the unicorn, I have to say. So
Yeah.
thank you for adding that.
Yes, I'm trying to read. Let's see. Oh,
John.
Okay. I know. I'm just reading what's in the chat. So sorry. Anybody else have any questions?
I was just wondering about the the horse, that it's on wheels. Is there something about the wheels?
It's a Trojan horse.
Mhm.
So if you've been following politics in the US, that kind of is self-evident. But it could be other things too. I don't want to, I'm torn between telling you and not telling you what I think things mean. Because if I tell you what I think it means, then you may not go on to see it deeper.
Which horseman did you leave out?
None, really. I mean, the white horse, I have to go look in my notes because I can't remember. The white horse was, the red horse is
Conquering.
Cold Cream.
Conquering.
Yeah, I can't remember now. I'm sorry. And I didn't write it down, but the black horse is war, the pale horse is plague.
White horse is
Conquest.
conquest.
Yeah.
Barbara, I think that's a great idea to leave the images open like that to interpretation by others. That's half the fun.
I know.
Well, I think the individual component, hearing about the individual components and what they mean, I think is illuminating. And we're all going to bring it together and see how it comes together in our own interpretation. So there's value to both.
Barbara, this is Tamar. Hi.
Tomorrow.
Hi, everybody, and Barbara. It is magnificent. The colors of the Renaissance, tapestries, it's just lovely, and the composition is great. I would like to hear what you have to say about the relationship between the crow, the raven, and the other creatures there. How do you tie the relationships?
Well, going back to the doctor who created the suit and the beak mask, and that tying in with Corona. The other thing that I want to say that ties that in a way is if you look at the symbol for chaos and you look at the coronavirus under a microscope, they look similar. So I don't want to say too much though, Tamar. I understand your question, but I don't want to go too deeply into my thoughts about it.
For me, that's very interesting. How you came up with this particular configuration of all the figures, and I find it very interesting. How you came up, what went through your mind, and I think there are many layers here.
I work very intuitively, so I try not to be too intellectual about my designs. If it works, it works, and I try not to give it too much thought, but I do think about it. I do research things and read about different things, and I knew I wanted a symbol for chaos, and I looked at a lot of different symbols, and that one spoke to me. It jumped out at me, And then my husband pointed out that later, after I had chosen it, that it was the same as the coronavirus under a microscope. So I feel that subconsciously things work too. So I trust that process.
Barbara,
No,
it
interesting.
seems
Thank
to
you.
me, that after all, like you were talking about working intuitively, that after all the research and the intellectual research, that it has to work visually.
Yes.
And the crow is such a powerful image. And just watching when you were talking about your design process, when the crow appeared, it just all came together.
Right. The raven definitely.
That's a good enough reason.
Yeah.
You know, but obviously there was a lot of other stuff that went into your choosing the crow in the first place and how you got there. But in the end, it has to work visually.
Which it does. Gosh.
Oh, and it really does. Yeah.
Barbara, I don't know if it's the camera. I can't see the upper left-hand horse.
Yeah. Does that help?
Oh, you can show it to me later. No.
I think if you're still on your telephone, that might be why.
No, I'm on my laptop.
Oh.
It's okay. I'll have to come see it.
Yes. There you go.
Barbara, what was your yarn for warp and weft?
So the warp is seine twine, and the weft is mostly all the weft that I dyed is the Jaeger spun rug warp. So it's a very hard, tightly spun yarn. When you dye it, it softens it, but it's still a hard spun yarn. And I don't like fuzzy surfaces. The feathers and some of the grays in the black horse are a yarn from, trying to think, well, a yarn I buy, and it's fuzzy. So I've been shaving it. This is a sweater shaver. I don't like fuzzy yarn, unless, reason to have the fuzz, but I feel like it blurs the lines, and sometimes you want that, but I don't in this. So I've been I shaved the horse.
What were the final measurements?
I haven't measured the height yet, but the width is 53 and the height is approximately 73. And when I cut it off and hem it, and of course you take the tension, well, the tension's off, but once it's been sitting a while, it will, move around a bit. So.
Barbara, did you make your loom?
Yeah, the loom is made from black pipe. And next time, if I have to buy pipe again to make a loom, I'm going to use scaffolding pipe because it's cheaper.
Right.
Yeah.
This is just wonderful. Wonderful.
There's the top of the loom. And I tied the loom so it wouldn't fall over.
Wait, now is it lodged against your ceiling?
No, it's not. It's because of the, it looks that way, but the ceiling is another foot or so above it.
It's a wonderful loom.
Yeah, it's big. It'll be fun, interesting taking it apart.
You do everything well.
Yes, she does.
Barbara, is it going to hang in the markings gallery?
I don't know. That's totally up to Nan.
We love it. Yeah.
But yeah, it might. I know that Christine asked for it too, so it might travel a little bit if it's available from markings to Maine Fiber Arts, but I'm going to submit it to some shows, so it may make it across the pond too.
Oh, good.
That's beautiful. Barbara, I have a question about the blue frame. So is it interlocked or is it stitched slit all the way?
I sew my slits as I weave.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's quite a process.
And I sew every other pass, which I know some people don't sew for 3 or 4 passes, but I want it to stay together. I use a color that matches a color yarn, that thread that matches the color I'm sewing into. So if I wove the blue first, I would use a blue thread, and it would go, the red weft would go around sewing thread, which is upholstery thread, and then stitch into the blue thread, not the warps, but the wefts. So I'm weft to warp essentially.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
And what BPI did you need to get that degree of detail? 10. Okay.
Wow.
Doesn't she look pretty?
Pardon?
You look so pretty.
Thank you, Jenny. my dear friend.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
How many strands of weft do you use on a bundle? Is it just the 1, 2?
2.
2, because I noticed you when you showed about the black and the reds, the way you do the fine line. You had 2. You had 1 red and 1 black.
That weight is for 2, but there were some yarns that were very fine, so I had up to 6 ends.
Okay. Okay.
I try to work as much as possible with the yarn I have in my cabinet. So whatever the thickness is, I will either add threads to get the thickness I need. Sometimes I will even unply yarns to thin it down.
And do you prefer, it looks to me like you prefer to dye to the right color rather than blend to get the right color?
I will blend when I want to blend, but if I want a solid color, I will dye that color.
Because you like solid colors, don't you?
And I do like solid colors. It's more less painterly. And of course, I studied with Archie Brennan and Susan Martin Maffei, and Archie in particular does not believe, or did not, because of course he's not with us anymore, he didn't believe in copying painting. He felt that tapestry, and preaching to the choir, right?
Yeah.
He didn't believe that tapestry should be a copy of a painting. Tapestry should stand on its own 2 feet as an art in its own right. And he was a phenomenal graphic artist working in the medium of tapestry. And I studied with Archie and Susan for 11 years, so it's
wow.
So
it worked. You're as good as they were. Oh,
well,
better.
No. Thank you, but no.
What am I missed?
Anybody else?
No.
Nope.
This was fantastic.
Time to cut off.
Thank you so much for inviting.
She's gonna cut it off the loom next.
Oh.
Cutting off
of
this thing.
Broadcast. I thought we were
The
done.
tapestry.
Oh, wow.
It's approximately 73 inches high and 53 inches wide. It's taken her over a year. Yeah.
Barbara, in French, it's called
get
La Tombée du
bigger
Métier.
picture of her.
In French, it's called La Tombée du Métier.
Okay.
The tapestry is falling from the loom. And it's also celebrated. It's a moment where it's a vernissage with wine.
No wine here today, but
it's beautiful work. Congratulations. Congratulations. Bravo.
Oh my God, it's coming.
She had 100 registered, and then she said there's 61 on.
Turn your mute.
From all over the world.
Mute.
There's a lady from Norway. What?
know who it is. that if you mute, that would be helpful. Well, I think it's supposed to be right.
Oh, look at that. Bravo, bravo.
What do you do with those ends, Barbara, when you're done?
Nothing. You want them to?
No, I mean, do you?
Yay! Yay!
Oh, that must feel so good.
Oh, wow.
Mazel tov. It was born.
Yeah, mazel tov, mazel tov.
Oh, it's just gorgeous.
Oh, that is
Wow.
so beautiful.
It's phenomenal.
Congratulations.
Thank you all so much.
Oh, thank you.
This was
Thank
awesome.
you.
Photo op. So,
Wow.
That's
unbelievable.
I'm going to do a screenshot here of everybody. There we go. It's been a pleasure sharing this process with all of you. And if you have any questions past this time, you can email me. I'll put my email in the chat in case you don't have it.
What now, Barbara? What now?
What now? Let me make sure I wrote it correctly. Be burns. I'm working on a little piece for Tapestry Touring International, and I have another corset brewing. So for the fight for Roe v. Wade, Texas law has inspired a new corset. So
Oh, that will be very interesting.
yeah, if it's done what I'm working on in my head, it's going to be very graphic. So
fetuses flying all over.
Well, no, not quite that, but close.
That's Vicky's visual. That's Vicky's visual.
That general. So
wow.
So if there aren't any more questions, I'm going to let you all go and enjoy the first day of the new year, and may this be a better year than we've seen. May you all be healthy, stay healthy, and weavers keep on weaving.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you. Happy New Year,
And
Barbara.
thank you for sharing with us.
And
fantastic.
Congratulations.
And all right.
Very fun. Beautiful studio too.
Bye.